All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first workshop in our three-workshop series on voice-driven AI development. It's part of the PubHealthAI Collaborative Network. We're pleased to welcome Christopher Collins from Austin Public Health to go deep into all things voice-driven AI over the next few months, starting with this session. So this is going to give you your hands-on approach to how to set up tools and get your workflows going so that you can do these kinds of development activities yourself. So, Chris, over to you.
All right. Thanks, Andrea. Hi, I'm Christopher Collins from Austin Public Health. I've been doing this AI stuff now since before everyone had access to even GPT-3 or 3.5. Um, I've been kind of steeped in the whole AI ecosystem and world. And as you probably know from the last time, if you came, I've primarily been focused over the last like 6 months in really changing my workflow over to a voice driven aspect. So the majority of things that I do today when I work with AI are all through voice and voice commands. The goal of this workshop is going to be to show you some tools you can use for voice driven development. Today, we're going to go over a couple of different things. We'll talk about how to set up your tools. We'll briefly touch on some coding assistance. We'll talk about enterprise configuration. We'll talk about security fundamentals. But overall, I hope that you'll walk away today with a strong understanding of how to set up the primary tool that I use, a free tool that you can also use so that you can use it moving forward in our workshops. We're going to do a 3 series set of workshops. So the second one that we're going to do after you learn about your tool setup and you have some time to play with it yourself is we're going to come back together and we're going to build an actual application. So in that session, we're going to deep dive into things like how to troubleshoot issues, maybe with AI agents, some productivity shortcutting. We'll talk about how you set up a GitHub repo and how you integrate Git into your processes because it's very important. You've probably heard, if you watch any of the YouTube content around AI lately and agents, spec-driven development. That's a big thing happening right now. We'll deep dive into that, and we'll use all those tools to build a small web app on the fly within 90 minutes. And then at our third session, we're going to put everything together, and I'll let y'all vote on what you want to build, but I'm kind of leaning towards showing you guys how to build a full-on meeting transcriber application for your organization in 90 minutes using AI agents. Um, why do we want to use voice? Well, it's because the keyboard's a bottleneck. You can talk a lot faster than you can type. Uh, Typing sometimes can become a bottleneck for your creativity as well. When you're typing, you tend to focus on your spelling and different mistakes that you might be making. Is it grammatically correct? You're not necessarily just letting things flow. So once you start to get into the voice groove, not only can it speed up your creativity and your accessibility to those creative thoughts, but it will also enable you to work with more than one agent at a time because you can quickly split your focus and your tasks up. Another thing that I'm going to show you today too is the context switching with these modern voice apps also is automatic. So I'm going to teach you how to set up some modes so that based on whatever the current application your focus is in, you can just talk to that application and AI in the background will convert your speech into the correct input for that application. So it also makes context switching between your applications and your work much better and faster. Some other benefits to voice-driven development are ergonomic, right? You're going to reduce repetitive strain injuries. It's a little more accessible to a wider range of audiences, uh, depending on what your native language is as well. We have a lot of really awesome models now that are fully multilingual, so you can speak in your natural language. Your productivity and your iteration cycles will get faster. You can speak as you think and you can just kind of get in the flow. You don't have to speak in any particular way. The AI is able to interpret stream of conscious very well. Again, as I had just talked about multitasking, you can be handling multiple different things at the same time, just alt tabbing through your applications. You can even do hands-free operation. We're not going to get into it here, but there's kind of a new thing that's happening where People are using eye tracking software now to track what their focus is, so you don't even really have to touch the keyboard anymore. And then accessibility just kind of more broadly increases the accessibility of AI to everyone. So we're currently talking right now about voice-driven development and why we might want to use it. The rest of our agenda today, we're going to go through the voice tools landscape. I'll talk about a couple of different tools, the cream of the crop as far as those that are out there. We'll get into some security and PHI considerations. I know since we're all in the health space, or most of us are probably, there's a lot of considerations around HIPAA requirements and BAAs and things like that. So we'll talk about that in depth. Then we'll talk specifically about SuperWhisper. I'm going to walk you through why that's the right choice for what we're working with. I'll walk you through a complete configuration and setup with that. We'll do a little workshop on custom modes. I'll walk you through how to build and set up all of your own custom modes. We'll do a live demonstration, or I'll show you as much as I can through the app itself. And then I've also got some exercise content along with the GitHub repo that everyone's going to have access to so that you can follow up and do some of these exercises on your own time. All right. So there's a lot of tools out there right now. SuperWhisper, which I don't know if Andrea, could you drop a link to that in the chat? It's just
Sure thing.
superwhisper.com.
Yep.
Um, it's a free app. It's based around the OpenAI Whisper models. That's the name, right? And what makes it different and kind of stand out is that it is a local processing first utility. When it was first created, the creator really wanted to leverage the local capability of doing the voice translation. And it started off with that in mind. Other applications that are out there that we'll talk about were cloud native first applications. And some of them that are very good and feature rich still don't have offline secure modes. SuperWhisper has also recently launched on Windows, so you can get it across iOS, macOS, and Windows operating systems. If you want to access the Pro subscription, which I'll get into a little more details around that, but just gives you access to more custom modes and more models. It's relatively inexpensive at about $9 a month. And then you can also just buy it once and own it forever, which I don't know about y'all, but I like that model personally over some other tools. But really the main reason that I recommend SuperWhisper is it runs the NVIDIA tuned Whisper models locally on your computer that doesn't use a lot of resources and keeps everything that you want local on your machine without any spillage of data. And why does that matter? Well, it matters for us, especially if you're talking with your security team, because even if you put a BAA in place, and does anybody not know what a BAA is? Are we all familiar with that? And HIPAA processing. So if you don't have a BAA in place, any information that you submit over the cloud is stored locally, probably forever, with that provider. These third-party applications that are hosted on the web as a software as a service, they often are not the owners of those systems either. So they're proxying all of your communication, and any data that you send back and forth is going through them, and then it's going to a whole nother company like OpenAI, who may or may not have a BAA with the vendor. So using an application like SuperWhisper, which allows you to have a complete local only experience, means that you can use something like this in a project that does handle sensitive data. It's also much easier if you want to use a tool like this to get this through a security review with your IT department. And so a lot of the main benefits of SuperWhisper are that you don't have to go do a BAA. Most of us do not have authorization to sign the BAA for our entire department. So if we wanted to use one of these other tools like Whisper Flow that does have BAA availability, we would still have to initiate a full-on review of the application. There's no data egress at all. Like all the data stays locally on your system. And again, for your IT department, it's an IT-friendly deployment. So another tool that's out there is called WhisperFlow, and WhisperFlow is great. It's a fantastic tool, and I've used it as well. It's a little more expensive than SuperWhisper, and it has some specific integrations with tools like Cursor and a few other AI applications on the market. But it is cloud only, so you have to be internet connected. Um, if you're going to use any PII with it at all, then you have to sign a BAA, and they do have that functionality available, but you have to go through the whole review process. They also have a little different set of models available, and their primary game is mostly about the way that they process your language and offer kind of a no touch, no customization needed experience to get the same benefits. So in WhisperFlow, if you sign their agreements, you do have a zero data retention policy. However, that's like a waiver that we would sign if anyone's familiar with Azure and using Azure AI services. There are waivers that you can sign an agreement with Azure where they will not store your data or they won't route your data outside of your Azure environment. So WhisperFlow does offer a privacy mode, but all your data is still going into the cloud and it's leaving your device and it's being processed in the cloud. So even with the privacy mode on, you are not keeping your data locally on your device. So if we do a head-to-head comparison, if we're looking at SuperWhisper versus WhisperFlow, they both have good platform availability. However, SuperWhisper is the only one that's available local only. Uh, you don't really even have to engage privacy mode. If you choose to use processing models that are local on your device, the data doesn't leave your device. It's a little lower cost for SuperWhisper if you want to get into the premium subscription. Both of the applications have context detection, although WhisperFlow does have better integration with individual tools than SuperWhisper does. So there's a little give and take there. But SuperWhisper will also work 100% offline. So you can air gap and you can be completely offline and you can still use SuperWhisper. So if you're deciding which one of these applications that you want to go with moving forward, which I'm telling you that I recommend to just use SuperWhisper for our demonstration. But if you have the capability, WhisperFlow is a really awesome tool. So I'm not trying to necessarily sell you on one or the other, just that for our demonstration, we're going to use SuperWhisper. But if you don't have those privacy concerns or you want to use it for your own projects, WhisperFlow can be really cool because they have probably some of the best integration with some of the coding tools that are out there. All right, so I think we've covered the data flow pretty well. But just to make it very clear, if you're going to use these applications with any special projects that you're going to be using health data that has not been cleaned and anonymized and is free of all PHI and health data, then you need to make sure that you customize your configuration so that you are using models that are BAA approved. So that means you need to get with your IT group or your security team, and we'll go through some of this configuration. But when you set up your endpoint, is what it's called, you want to make sure that you have a BAA agreement or the correct waivers in place for your deployment. Our department primarily uses Azure, but both AWS and Google Vertex, they all have the same controls where you can get cloud approved to use those models for those use cases, but they all require BAAs and they all require special configuration. So once again, if you are going to use WhisperFlow, do not use any data that's sensitive because it is 100% cloud-based. I've got a little checklist in here for you too that you can use. So if you're new to deploying AI tools or you haven't used AI tools specifically in your environment yet, you can sit down with your IT team and this will give you a nice little checklist to go through with them before you use it on a sensitive project.
Why don't we take a quick pause here and see if anyone has questions before we move on to the next section? Alrighty.
No questions. Good. That's either good or bad. All right, let's dive in a little bit into SuperWhisper. So when you first download and install SuperWhisper, especially if you're on a Mac, it's going to hit you with a whole bunch of permissions requests. You're going to need to make sure that you grant permission for the microphone and for the accessibility features, which is going to let you copy and paste into the different applications. Then it's going to start up and it's going to ask you which model you want to start with in the model selector. I would recommend just for getting started, just choose the fast model to play with it for a little bit. The fast model is local. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. So you can download this app and you don't have to pay a dime and you can get started using the local transcription features. It's going to have you choose your recording hotkey. There's a little wizard and it's a little different on Windows, but they both have a wizard. So once you get going, it's going to ask you to either use the default hotkey or to select your own. I have mine set to Alt Space. It's two keys that are very close together to each other, and it's a little different from other shortcuts. I prefer to use the hotkey instead of just voice activated recording because sometimes I like to listen to music or YouTube videos in the background, and using the hotkey also enables another cool feature where it will pause any media that's playing in the background so that you only capture your voice. And then you'll need to test your first dictation to make sure that you have the correct microphone selected. So it'll pick up all the sound inputs on your device and it'll let you select the one that you want to use for your primary voice input. And then when you run your first prompt, you'll see a little animation will pop up on your screen. That's it doing its thinking and processing. And then it will come back and it will show you the text of your transcription. And then it will automatically paste that into wherever your cursor was last activated. So this is what the app looks like when you load it up. On the home section, you're going to have a little dashboard that's going to show you your average words per minute speaking. This is your speaking volume. And then it will show you how many words it's transcribed this week, as well as projections on how many apps you've used or how much time you've saved. On the left-hand side there, you'll also see some options for modes, vocabulary, configuration, sound, models, and history. Modes is where we're going to set up custom modes. Think of those as custom prompts. You know how you have a prompt library? That's what they're calling modes here. In your modes, you'll be able to select different applications and combinations of prompts or models that you want to use to process the input for that specific application or mode. In the vocabulary area, you can set up references to words. Configuration will let you configure different models and settings, which we'll go over as well. Your sound settings lets you select what you want to use for input and output. The models library is just kind of some little info cards on all the models in the system. And your history is the history of everything you've ever said and all the recordings that it's kept. The first place that you'll probably want to dive into is the configuration section. The style refers to the style that's going to pop up when you do your recording. So I have mine set to, as you can see, it's recording now. I have mine set to classic because I like to make sure that I can see what app I'm in, as well as see the animation on the screen. It also shows you the shortcut that you currently have configured. and you can always hit the escape key to bail out. If you choose the mini mode, it won't show you the little options. It'll just kind of show you a small voice waveform to let you know that the transcribing is happening. You can also set it to none, and it will just have a little icon that shows in your taskbar. I've also gone down and made sure that I turned on my automatic updates. I like to have mine launch at login. So I turn this on. And if you're on a Mac and you turn this on, it's going to ask you for permission first. So you'll have to not only turn it on here, but approve the permission. All right, that history mode. So the history mode is really important because you may need to go back and recopy or paste something. One of the things that I've noticed when I'm working with a tool is that I might have accidentally changed the focus of my mouse and accidentally pasted the content from one window into the other window. And I don't want to lose that because maybe I just did a 5 minute dialogue about something important. So if you go back into your history, you can recall all of your segments that were recorded or just the full original recording. Or you can pull the AI process version out and you can click this little icon to copy the content again and then paste it right back into the correct app. You can also delete the content if you want to delete it, or you can retranscribe it. So if there was an error in the transcription, you can use the retranscribe button. Something that we're not necessarily going to dive into here in this class, but you can actually use this as a meeting transcriber as well. It's perfectly capable of recording an entire meeting, and it has speaker identification built into it. So you may also want to retranscribe because it's an entire meeting. And you can do that here. All right, the models library will show you different model cards about all the models that are available. If you don't have the pro subscription, some of the models will either be blacked out or not show up, or they'll have a little pro icon on them and you can't click them. But inside the models library, if you click on one of the models, it will show you the configuration settings for that particular model and some stats about it. For the local models, you'll see a little download icon because you have to download the model to your local computer for it to work. If you choose the professional subscription option, you'll get access to the NVIDIA Parakeet models. In my opinion, these are some of the best for local processing, and I use the Parakeet English model on almost all of my settings because it's honestly faster sometimes than even the ultra cloud processing that they have available. And I like that it stays local. The LLM models, so not the language transcription models, but the LLM models, these are what you'll use to process your speech. So if you're creating a mode that you want to have processed by the AI or turn into an agentic approach, then you'll need to configure these AI models. By default, you will get access to some of these models with your subscription if you choose a subscription. So you don't have to pay for these. It's all bundled into your subscription. And they will use these models to process the text that your transcription model processes. They also have this option to do custom models. So custom models allow you to wire up your own endpoints. So if you have Azure OpenAI in your business platform and you want to wire that in, you can give it the API endpoint and your API key and your provider information. And now you can wire directly into your approved BAA signed and waivered AI endpoints and use those to process your text. And one of the things that's also interesting is you can do a bring your own key. So for any of the vendors that they support, if you already have your own API key, and this would be for ones that are not BAA, but just regular use models, so commercial models. If you have an API key for those, you can just click on these, enter in your API key, and then have it bill to your account directly. That will also give you access to whatever models you have available on that platform beyond what are available through the tool itself.
We have a question in the chat from April Hendrickson at California. Does the retranscribe allow you to edit or is it to re-record?
No, so it takes the recording that was made and then it runs it back through the transcription model again to improve the quality of the transcription. And let me see here. Don't think we can edit it. I'm just going to pull this in. So
Do you tell it what to edit in that retranscribe moment, or how does it know what to fix?
it just runs it back through the transcription again. There's some settings in the vocabulary. So if you went back into the vocabulary and you added in either a new word that you want it to recognize better or a replacement, which we'll go over here in a minute, you could do that, save that, and then as long as the model supports these injections, then when you did the retranscribe, it would try to pick those up. But it doesn't look like it lets you literally like go in here and make edits because it's just going off of the recorded audio. So it's actually saving the audio segments to your computer. And then it sends those to the local model to transcribe.
Does that take up a lot of space? Do you have to
No,
the audio
they're teeny
files?
tiny little MP3s. Hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. All right. So where you really start to get into the power of this to transform it into an agentic tool more than just like a meeting transcriber is that you can prompt the LLM and you can process all of your segments and your transcripts with AI before it gets passed into the application. So all of your basic prompt writing is true here, just as it is with any other AI tool. You want to have good prompts and you want to have a good structure to your prompts. Um, Almost all models now respect XML tags pretty well. So if you're really trying to get the best performance, use XML tags and at least have these three key areas. Have a role to tell the AI in this particular function what it is you're doing, the instructions, and then your requirements. That's going to help steer the model no matter what model it is that you choose. And it will let you use your prompts across more models in this system effectively. So I always like to start off with the role statement and tell it, like if we're making an assistant here, you're going to be a professional email editor. And I have a couple different ones. So I will also say, like, where I'm from. I'm from Austin Public Health, and this is going to be professional email sent out to my team members. In the instructions, I talk about how I want it to break the information down. I minified it here. I'm going to give you guys some worksheets that have much larger prompts that will perform even better than this. But like if you want to always have your bullets in a specific way, or if there's a tone or a way that you like to write, you can also provide examples. So if you have a whole email that you really like and you think that's a exemplary of your communication style, you can also, along with the prompt, give it an example of good output. And then the tool will put those two together when it sends it to the AI so that that's more like what you get back. You can also add in context references which I'll go over here in a minute, the app will automatically send any information that you have on your clipboard or highlighted, or information about the application itself, like the name of the app, what your login name is, the current time and date, things like that. So context awareness and mode switching. This is where the power really comes out in this particular application, especially in that you can customize almost every aspect of this. So the application is able to be aware of whatever application is currently under your focus. So it doesn't know every app that's currently open on your computer. It just knows which one is currently focused. And that means whatever your mouse was on and then you hit your hotkey to start a recording, that's the app that it's going to trigger off of. You can switch modes manually. So if the application type that picked up was, let's say, email, but maybe I have 3 different writing modes that I'd like to use for my email, then I can also trigger each different mode based off of the application. And you can do that through a shortcut. You can do that through the menus and the system tray. You can also just set up auto activation rules, or you can provide deep links. And you can set up macros to also work whenever you say a specific application. So an example might be every time I open or use VS Code, it automatically enters coding mode. Every time I activate from Teams, it will automatically enter chat mode. Of course, Outlook would be email mode. And we can set all these up by going into the custom modes under advanced settings, and I'll show you how to build some rules for that. So if you're on a Mac, you're going to see SuperWhisper running up in the top right taskbar area. Your modes are going to be available just underneath your audio device. And you'll see the name of the mode that's currently active along with whatever icon you've given it. And if you click on that, then you can manually select to change to a different mode. But what will be active by default is the one, either the last used or the one that it's determined should be active based off of your rules. So to create a mode, you're going to go over to the modes area menu on the left. And then in the top right, you're going to click on the create mode button. It's confusing to see all that at the same time. So if you click on create mode, then all of these will show up as the defaults. There's built-in modes. You get 3 modes if you get the basic free plan, and you'll have all the modes available if you do the pro plan. And then primarily what we're going to do is always down here in custom. We're going to create custom modes. Let's also talk a little bit about vocabulary and replacements. So sometimes different transcription models will not pick up your words 100%. They need a little bit of help. Most of the models, especially the cloud models that are available, they can all take what are called hints. And so the vocabulary section of the application is where we can set up hints for words, where we can type in the meaning of the word or the spelling of the word, or we can do acronyms and then type out what they mean. And we can also do replacements. So a replacement is different than a hint. A replacement is going to actually replace the text that you speak with whatever you choose for the replacement. So, for example, I can tell it every time I string APH together, I want you to change that to Austin Public Health. And then that will just happen in the background. Some other things would be like if you're coding and you want certain words to use a certain case that matches your code style, or if you always want certain things to be in all caps, then you can have those as replacement options. So every time the model comes across those, it will automatically replace it on the right side so that you have the correct formatting. And they've just recently added this, which is awesome. So we have a whole menu now dedicated to the vocabulary. You click on the vocabulary option, and then you can choose your replace with or your add to vocabulary once you start typing in your phrase. If you choose replace with, it will ask you to type in what you want for the replacement to be, and then you can save that. And it will store a list of all of your swaps and replacements. You can also use links, which is really cool. So you can basically start to treat the vocabulary like a power user as macros. So if I say my calendar, like maybe I'm telling the AI, I want you to add this event to my calendar, you can have it actually insert the link to your calendar, or it could be a link to a specific GitHub repo or something like that. And now every time you use that phrase, the AI will automatically insert that into the prompt for the large language model on the back end. So now you're kind of stacking the power of the AI models. How's everybody feeling about that? All good? Any questions? All good. All right.
I
Let's
do
There's a
see one in the chat from Taylor at CSTE asking if you could show how to make the app adjustments. The voice text wizard is working, but she's not sure where to go to see the settings. So we've got people working along with us here, which is awesome.
the hang on. Let me find a screen here that's a little.
And Taylor, if you want to just give some guidance on what exactly you're looking for, that could be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it's a very silly question, but I've got it installed and I see the app and I open the app, but I don't see like where you're configuring all your settings and stuff. I'm not, that's not
Are you
coming
on a
up.
Mac or a PC?
PC, Windows.
If you click the app again, like down in the bar, does this pop up?
No, which
If
is
you go
weird, right?
if you go to the task bar and you click on it, like the probably down in the bottom right, right? Like,
Yeah.
do you see the little settings button? Like, click the icon in the taskbar and then click settings. It should pop up.
Yeah, it's got open, run as administrator, open file location, unpin from start, pin to taskbar, uninstall.
No, like down in the little notifications area.
Oh. See, I knew it was a dumb
Yeah.
question. Thank you.
There are
I
no
wanted
dumb
to.
questions. There are just the ones that might have an easier answer than others.
Yep. Thank
Everybody
you.
else
Got
has the
it.
same problem. They're just afraid to ask.
And
See, okay.
April's asking if the custom mode is included with the free version of
Yeah,
this.
you get 3 custom modes. So you should be able to do all the stuff that we're going to play with.
Right. Thank you.
Cool. All right.
I'll jump in another quick question, Chris. Appreciate this. So again, with the language models that are on the back end, those come with the pro plan, correct? And so say if you're messing around with this on the free plan, you won't be able to use those language models technically within SuperWhisper. Is that correct?
You get a couple of free ones. Like you get the fast version. Um, I don't know if they blocked the free version for being able to add your own key. Are you asking about like the secondary processing with the LLM?
Yes. So I know with the fast model you're going with is the voice model, from my understanding, going through this.
Yeah,
And obviously, you use the NVIDIA's Parakeet English model for the voice model, which is
right.
with the Pro plan, and on the back end with the large language models. like GPTs and whatnot, when I'm looking through those, I see that all those are part of the Pro plan. So again, just making those custom.
Does it let you choose the custom option?
I think right now, yeah, it's not allowing me to do the custom option right now. Obviously, when you first download it, you technically get 15 minutes for free on the Pro plan when you first start messing around with it. So I
Right.
can mess around a little bit more. I just don't know what it would exactly look like once it's in the free mode only. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, you know, the LLM models all cost money to run. So if you want to do the secondary AI processing, which like when we get into the custom modes, there's a lot more power that we can unlock with that. That part would require probably paying for, or we'll have to figure out how to wire it up through custom, which they may also be gating behind the subscription now.
Yeah, no worries. Appreciate that.
Mhm. All right, let's get a little bit deeper into our custom modes. So prompt engineering best practices again, those apply. Um, the custom modes is where we're really going to start to unlock the power. And as you just heard, there's even more power that we can unlock if we enable the large language model processing on the backside. But we can still do really cool stuff with custom modes, even with just the local transcription features active. Um, what you want to do to create a custom mode is start off by clicking the create mode button. Go down to custom. And real quick, I'll kind of give you a rundown of what some of these built-ins are. So super is their default, and it has context switching turned on by default. It has a little prompt that they've already created and you cannot modify it. And it's designed to adapt to whatever application you currently have open. It processes it with the models that they've chosen, which I think is their ultra model on the back end. And um, it will do some prompt engineering for you and try to adapt to whatever application you currently have open. I think it works kind of okay. Just for general purpose stuff, it's not bad. It doesn't do anything super fancy. It's pretty plain Jane. But if you don't want to get into the deep customization and all you really care about is being able to move in the direction of the voice computing, then it's a good mode to use. Voice to text does no processing. It literally just transcribes your voice. That's it. Messaging format does a little bit of cleanup on what you're saying to formalize it somewhat for messaging communications. Email attempts to make everything more like a polished professional email. Notes turns everything into short little bullets. And then meeting is like a full on meeting transcriber mode. We're going to do custom. They've made some changes to the interface. So now, whenever you go into your custom mode, there are 3 places where you can interact, along with changing the preset and language. So we don't want to use any presets. We're going to stick with custom. Custom instructions, that's our prompt box. That's what we're going to put in our large language model instructions. This is the information that we want to add to our voice transcription and how we want to transform it. On the left-hand side, that's the model we're going to be sending our information to process. On the right-hand side is the model that's doing the transcription. Over here, you also see like a little settings wheel. It doesn't matter whether you click either of these buttons or this button now, they all open the same menu. This little slider is going to come out from the side. So even though it looks like those are different options, they're not. So if you click those, it's going to have this little flyout that pops out. Again, it's going to give us the selectors to choose the language model we want to use. By default, it comes with a standard set. If we have got any models that we've custom created, they will also show up in the dropdown. The voice models will show up, and if we don't have them downloaded, there'll be a little download icon next to them, and they'll be gray until you click the download and download the voice model to your local machine. The app selector. If you click that button, it's going to show you all the apps that are eligible to be used with this that are installed on your computer. It's kind of a small little window, but you scroll through there and pick the app that you want to use for this particular mode. You can have a dozen apps in there if you want, or you can have one. A best practice is to pay attention to what apps you choose, because if you also use a custom mode and you put the same app in multiple modes, SuperWhisper will be confused and it will not trigger correctly if you have, say, ChatGPT selected for 4 different modes as the primary app, or Microsoft Word. I've noticed that will sometimes also crash the app. So make sure that you only select one app for any custom mode. Don't apply it anywhere else. You can also have it detect websites. So if the browser, if you add a browser in here that's active, and then you add Google, and your prompt then could be, you're a custom search agent, and anytime we're at google.com, rephrase this as a SEO extraordinary search. Could also be your calendar or literally any website. The prompt context. So this is where you decide if you want to inject this context into the large language model or not. You can choose application information, which will give the name of the application. And depending on which app it is, sometimes it will include the time, the date, your username, and other information about the app itself. Copied text means that you have it on your clipboard. So if you've Control-C'd it from somewhere and you have this checked, it will automatically inject whatever is on the clipboard. Selected text means whatever was last highlighted. So as long as it was in the app that you're trying to talk to, if you have that selected and highlighted somewhere, it will pull that in. Examples are for, like I mentioned earlier with the email, if you have an example of what a good output should look like, you can add an example of that, and it will combine that with the custom instructions to help steer the model even better. Down here are some also interesting features. So playback when recording. I always set this to pause or pause and resume. What that does is if you're listening to Spotify in the background, or if you have YouTube playing, whenever you hit your hotkey to record your voice, it will automatically pause any media that's playing in the background. And I think if you click that drop down, you can do a resume function. So when you release and you're done recording, your media will start playing again. Record from system audio will record whatever is happening in the background. So if you had Spotify going and you have record from system audio, then it would record whatever was on Spotify. Where this actually comes in handy is for meetings. So if you're like in a Teams meeting or in a Zoom and you want to use your own transcriber, and you want to use this as a transcriber, and you want to only transcribe locally, then you can use this as the meeting transcription engine by turning that on. And so when you activate it and you go into your meeting, it will record everything. When you're done, you hit the hotkey again, and it will take all the system audio and run that through the transcriber. And if you turn on identify speakers, it will use its speaker identification and attempt to try and attach names with all of the speaker segments. When you're adding an app, this is just kind of a little view of what the little app picker looks like on a Mac. It doesn't show a scroll bar in here, but this is a scrollable list. So if you spin your mouse wheel up and down, it'll let you scroll through the list and pick an app. So this is what one might look like fully filled out. I've selected Claude. I've selected all of the different options. I've got it set to pause. I do not want to record system audio, and I do not want to identify speakers. When you save that, it will go back to this view. And if you have a really crazy long prompt, you can stretch out the UI. It doesn't move horizontally, but vertically. So you can see most of your prompt in there. And then it will show you all the apps that you currently have linked to that mode. And you can edit this prompt anytime you want. You don't have to click save. As soon as you edit it, it's live. And that's how you make a custom mode. So in this presentation, I have some examples for these simple little example modes. I recommend that you start off by making a Microsoft Teams chat mode. In your little goodie bag, the GitHub link that you're going to receive, there's a whole set of exercises, and one of them specifically goes in depth into some of these prompts for you, but you don't have to do anything really complicated. You can make it short and sweet. The idea here is that you really want to start trying to move yourself away from typing in Teams all the time and start dictating more. I kind of have found that by starting to do my Teams chats this way, it has helped me arrange my thought process better, because getting in the flow of like moving away from your keyboard to talking to your computer all the time takes a little getting used to. So the more like everyday average functions you can start to shift over, it will really help you when you get into your agentic stuff, when you're talking to AI and you're really trying to get like hard work done. A professional email mode is also another really good one to do. You can just stream of conscious your emails, and they're going to come out sounding like super professional, and you don't have to sit there and edit them. And it makes Grammarly a little less relevant, unless you just want to try to wipe out all the M dashes. I currently have one set up for Claude Code or for my computer terminal. So those of you that are developers out there, this is another like quick win, easy one to do and set up. You can create a prompt that will convert everything that you say into terminal lingo. Whatever your favorite shell is, I would go in and in making this mode, I would provide the AI that information, like, hey, I use Z shell and I am in Kitty terminal, and I also like to tell it which commands we have currently loaded up that are authenticated, like Superbase CLI, Azure CLI. They can be really good cloud administrators. So by pre-wiring that information into your AI instructions, every time you hit your terminal, you can just talk to it. And then this is a little more advanced one. So an AI handoff mode is designed so that we might talk about a task that we want to have accomplished. And this prompt will break down the task into a clear objective, kind of put a plan together with it, include any reference information we need, including like clipboard context and content. And then it will turn that into a task package for the AI agent. That way you don't have to sit there and like type out a really long prompt and do a bunch of prompt engineering. You can just kind of off the cuff talk about an idea into the microphone, and the output is a really well formatted packet of instructions for your AI agent to go and do. I use this frequently. In fact, the whole PowerPoint deck that you saw today, outside of some of the copy pasting on the screenshots, all of this was created by an AI agent. I just talked to it. So I didn't type any of this content. So that is it for SuperWhisper. Is anybody working with it now and has any questions? I'm going to recommend that if you're here and you want to do coding, that if you have it installed, go ahead right now and create a custom mode. And if you got Cursor or VS Code or something like that, JetBrains, add that as the app and see if you can get the custom mode to activate whenever you go into that app. For those of you that are just trying to increase productivity, try creating the chat mode. See if you can just give it a little short prompt, and if it activates whenever you go into Teams. You could also try doing an email or or some sort of a terminal activity. But I'll stop there and let you guys ask any questions before we go further.
I'm curious if you've found any limitations with it, any use cases or topic areas that it performs worse in, or has it been pretty equal across all?
It comes down to your prompt, honestly. So, I guess I would say there are 3 different areas where you'll find that you need to tweak. The local models, even though they're really good, they don't pick up all of like the words or acronyms or certain accents. Sometimes I fall back into my Southern Texas accent a little bit and it doesn't pick up all of my words. So I'll have to switch over to either a different model or go to the cloud processing, the Ultra model. I've also found that depending on what tasks you want to do, you and what model you're using on the back end. If you're trying to use a less expensive model like a GPT-5 mini to keep costs down, like you can run that model for the whole week and not even spend $1. But you have to have extremely good prompting and your modes can't be as generic or that you can't have them do too many things. You have to have it be very specific. Versus if you are willing to spend the money and you get the pro account or you even add your own models. Like I'm currently running Opus from Claude as my primary LLM model on the back end. And with that, I find I don't really have to have as much prompting at all. It's just so smart and so good at everything that like it's worth it to me to spend like $20 a week to have that model process all my text because I don't have to do a lot of the prompt engineering anymore. Was that helpful?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. All right.
I have one more question. Are there any models you would recommend people just not use, stay away from, things you had trouble with after you tried them out?
Yes. Let me look at the library. Okay. The nano models, I would just stay away from, especially if you're trying to do coding. Like if all you care about is doing meeting transcriptions, you can probably get away with the nano models. But fast is about as low down the totem pole as I would go for. Or I'm sorry, standard is about as far down the totem pole as I would go for everyday high quality use. Um, I think Parakeet, the multi-language Parakeet, is sometimes better even than the Ultra, the cloud hosted model. I don't particularly like the Nova models. They're supposed to be faster, but unless you're doing pure medical transcription, I don't think that the Nova adds much benefit. But if you have the need, like if you're working with medical terminology, they do have one specific to medical usage that works pretty well.
Great, thanks.
Yep. And then for your LLMs, if you're really trying to do work, I think that like GPT-5 or like the Sonnet and Claude 4.5 models are about as far back in technology as I would go. So I would try to stay current with that. And then the mini models perform pretty well. The nano models, not so good. They're really fast, but I wouldn't go less than Haiku or GPT-5 mini. And I stay away from Llama. And so if you have a really fast computer, like if you have a Mac Studio that's really kitted out and you want everything to be 100% local and you want to use a large language model locally on your machine as well, you can choose Mistral 7B and you can download it and it will run it locally on your system resources. And so it does have one integrated LLM that you can run local on your computer. But if you're on your work provided computer and you select this model and then you try to do any work with this, it will probably crash your computer. So this is for enthusiasts only, I would say.
It's really good advice. Thanks.
All right, let's talk a little bit about some of these other things. I'm going to go kind of fast over this because we're going to go in depth in the next class on how I specifically set up Claude Code. I'm going to give you guys some scripts for setting that up. But primarily, the agents that I've been working with lately is 100% Claude Code, and now the new Cowork, Claude Cowork. I'll have some content on that soon. But Cowork is what I use to create all of this content. And it's basically just Claude Code wrapped up in a different interface that's a little more friendly for doing other things besides coding. But Claude Code itself is pretty much the de facto standard right now. It runs on Mac OS, Linux, or Windows, as long as you have either an Anthropic API key or a Claude subscription, it will work. You can get access to this starting at $20 a month. The next level is $100, and then they have another level after that, which is $200. The difference between those subscription plans is that the $20 plan is enough to do a couple of tasks every day, all week long, not focused, concerted work all day long. The $100 plan, if you are a content creator, if you are a coder, if you're a data scientist, and you need to work for a couple of hours a day focused and just using an AI tool, it will let you work with the AI a couple hours a day for 5 days a week for a month. The $200 plan will pretty much let you use it at least 10 hours a day, full steam ahead, multiple agents all working at the same time, 5 days a week. So if you're a power user, if you want to build a full SaaS application on your own without a whole team of developers, and you want to use AI to do all of that, then you're probably going to need the $200 a month plan. And recently, they've gotten a little stingy on some of the usage requirements. So people are noting that their token usage is quote unquote burning up faster. And what that means is they meter your usage. That's the difference in these plans, is how many tokens you can use in any given 5-hour span of time. And those limits are reducing, not increasing. And that's across the board, even with OpenAI and Google as well. So they're really trying to make money off of these now. Just something to be aware of. So the installation is super easy. If you are a terminal user, drop down to your terminal, run your npm install command. It's going to install. As soon as you run it, like all you need to do is type Claude in the terminal, and it's going to fire it up. And then it's going to go through a login procedure, and it's going to ask you if you want to use your API key or you want to use your Claude account. There is a way to configure Claude Code to use a cloud model that's hosted in your AI infrastructure. So you don't have to just point it at the Anthropic endpoints. You could point it to now Microsoft for sure, and I know Amazon both have Opus 4.5 available for deployment inside of Azure Foundry. So if you have that luxury and your department is set up where you have access to that, you can just do a little script inside the terminal and then reroute it to your endpoint. And I'll provide you guys with scripts for that in the next class. Slash commands. The main things that you really want to know about inside of Claude Code is you start everything with a plan. So / plan or shift tab 2 times will enter into plan mode. And let me pull up a terminal. I want to show you what it looks like. So I have mine customized a little bit. I have my little context window down here that shows me how much context I'm using. If I want to go into plan mode, I hit the shift and the tab key, and now I can see that I'm in plan mode. Always start off your tasks with plan mode. What I like to do is give a little bit of instruction about what it is I'm trying to do, and then I'll turn on plan mode and say, okay, create a plan for this. And what plan mode does is it will automatically spawn multiple sub agents that are using the haiku model. They'll go out and look at any of the files that you've got in your repo or that are part of the project, or they'll go out on the web and they'll do web searches, and then they'll bring all that information back to the primary model, which, as you can see, I have selected here is Opus 4.5. They'll bring all that information back, and then Opus will use that to create a plan of attack. It will also create a to-do list, which is really important because that to-do list is its tracker, and it will maintain its to-do list through what's called a compression cycle. So when you're using these AI agents, after they've used up all of their context window, you have to start a new conversation, or you have to do what's called a compact to squish that down. Well, Claude Code has a really cool system where it will automatically do that at whatever point you select. And it will maintain that to-do list as well as a history of the files that it's currently accessing and carry it over into a new conversation. And then your context window will recycle again. So creating that plan is really important because it's going to write that plan to a file. It's going to create the to-do list, and those things are going to persist with you through multiple cycles of compression. That's how we keep it on track. If you want to switch models, if you don't want to use Opus, for example, if you're on the $20 a month plan, or your department's paying for the usage straight through Azure, it will get very expensive very quickly if you're using Opus for everything. So using the model switch will let you bump the main model you're using down to either Sonnet or Haiku to spend less money. That can be helpful if you're trying to manage cost or if you're working on something that's not as complex. And you only really want to turn on Opus for the really hard tasks. If you subscribe to the higher tier max plans, they give you enough usage that you can use Opus 4.5 pretty much all the time. Again, the compacting will summarize the current conversation. After you go through a couple of rounds of compaction, you will get what's called context rot. And context rot means that by having the AI summarize itself multiple times, that it started to drift off topic or it's lost a little bit of what it's trying to do. And you'll start finding that the results you're getting back just aren't that great anymore. My general rule of thumb is after 3 compacts, we start a whole new conversation. I've got some really cool tools called hooks that I've built into my version of Claude Code. So I actually have a whole nother language model that sits on the outside that does the compacting for me and keeps track of everything that we've been talking about, which allows me to extend that into like 10 or 20 cycles without having that same degradation. But it costs money and you have to set it up and manage it. Clearing the conversation is how you reset in Claude Code. So if you're getting into that context rot and you don't have everything set up to customize it, and or you just want to start a new task, if you hit clear, it'll start a new conversation thread. There's also a command that I don't have in here, but it's really important. If you're in a folder and you launch Claude, it saves what's called session information into that folder, and you can resume that conversation. So if you use the exit command when you leave, the next time you start Claude in that folder, if you'll add the continue command, it will pick that conversation up from where you left off. So if I add that little continue flag, when he comes back online, you can see that it picked right back up. and we're in the same conversation. It did not start a new conversation. And then for all of you who are cost conscious, you can do cost or usage / usage, and it will show you a little chart of your current limits. This is how they manage cost with the current max subscription plan. It'll show you when you started your session, how much of your weekly usage you've used, because you get a preset weekly amount of tokens, and you get a 5-hour session use of tokens. And then they also have a special usage just for Sonnet, which if you use the Sonnet model, basically it doesn't eat up the rest of your usage. There are team plans for Claude Code out there. I don't recommend them unless you need the security that are provided by the team plan, because you're spending $150 and you're going to get less usage than you would get from just buying the $100 plan. So unless you just really need to do file sharing with each other within your team, or you really have to have that cloud sharing agreement in place with them, then it's much cheaper and more effective to buy the $100 licenses for everyone on your team than to spend $150, especially because it has a minimum of 5 seats. So if you're going to buy the team plan, you have to commit to 5 seats. All right, we talked about the planning mode, how it reads, thinks, and iterates. Talk a little bit about sub agents. So a sub agent is just another Claude, or most of the other AI tools are starting to copy this capability now. So you can also get this in Codex, and I think you can get it in Gemini CLI now. They'll all run sub agents. It's just copies of themselves that have a set of instructions, and they send an agent out to do a task. That agent has its own context window and its own little to-do list. And it can go execute without burning up your main agent's context and usage. So a task that normally maybe you would have had to compact 4 or 5 times, and you would have got that context rot. Now we can avoid that because we can use these sub agents to do all those smaller tasks in the to-do list, and they can come back and just report to the main model that they're done. What that's doing is it's setting up what's called an orchestration pattern. So we're making our primary model the orchestrator, and the sub agents are now the doers. They're going to go create their own little tasks. So one of the things that I like to do with the sub agents is whenever I'm talking to Claude, I tell it to create a plan, and in the plan, create tasks for the individual sub agents and break it down by dependencies, and try to use as many parallel sub agents as possible to complete each task. And so what that does is it automatically farms the work out to the sub agents so that we can continue our main task longer and longer before we get context rot. Skills. Okay. Skills are kind of like commands, right? Those / commands that we're doing that make it do a specific thing, except skills come with a whole lot of extra information. A skill is like a little package of instructions, and it can also include plugins and other capabilities that we want the AI to use, but we can trigger them with a / command or just by telling it to use the skill. And once we've created a skill, for example, we could create one that does front-end design work, and it maybe has all of our department's branding information baked into the file set. Every time we work on a front end or we're working on a design problem, it would automatically load that skill, and it would know to automatically apply all of our UI and UX patterns and the correct colors, and even where to get the right logo files. And all of that can happen in the background without me having to actually tell it or type it anything. So kind of like those custom modes that we created in SuperWhisper, a skill is like a custom mode for Claude Code. MCP servers. These have been around for a while. You probably heard about these quite a bit last year. They're still around, but calling an MCP server directly is kind of on the way out. We're starting to favor the skill integration or turning MCP servers into what's called a tool call here in 2026. And the reason for that is because MCP servers, as the way they were created as a standard, they use a lot of tokens up front. You have to load these into memory so that the AI knows how to use them. So that string of information that we have to feed the AI that tells it, hey, this is an MCP server and it has 18 commands. Here's how you do each one, and here's when to use it and why you should use it. Before you know it, if you load up 2 or 3 MCP servers, you don't have any context left for your AI to do other tasks. So the skills are a new way around that, as well as converting them to tool calls. So while they're still relevant, and a lot of the stuff that we're going to do moving forward, I'm going to show you how to mitigate these. Hooks are the new thing of the future. So hooks are the capability to programmatically intercept commands that are going to be made either preemptively or post by the AI. And so what we can do with these is we can detect before the AI is going to use a certain type of a tool, like before it makes a get call, we're going to insert a prompt, or we're going to insert a certain kind of information, or we're going to intercept that. We're going to send it to another model. The other model is going to do its thing, and then that information is going to come back. Then the AI is going to process and do its thing. And then we can also have post hooks that will fire after the model has done something. So I can set it up that every time Claude edits a file in a repo, we automatically run our linters and our security checks. And these are kind of becoming the new wave. I think they're going to be super hot in 2026. I'm going to show you all about how to set up custom hooks to do different things with them. They are extremely valuable in being able to run what's called a long horizon task, because we can have a large language model intercept the decision points. You know how the AI will ask you all the time, like, are you sure you want to do this? Or what do you want me to do next? Or here's a couple options. How do you want to move forward? You can actually have that decision point passed to another model that's been programmed to only stop if there's a security issue or if there's a danger that we would delete an important files from the system. So we don't have to run in YOLO mode. We can have this large language model act as a proxy, and now we can run our tasks all the way from start to finish until they're done. So by adding in these hooks, we can give the AI agent an entire PRD document, and it can code overnight while we sleep. Okay, plugins. We're almost done. Plugins are kind of like skills, but they're a little more specific. So a plugin bundle will include slash commands. It'll have pre-written subagents, oftentimes some MCP servers, and some hooks. So when you install a plugin, like we might have a front-end design plugin, it will enable the large language model access to all those things and tools for that particular plugin. Some common ones are like there's a whole GitHub plugin that helps the AI not have to use the same terminal commands and can interface directly with GitHub on the web. So moving forward, I would recommend that you, if you haven't, that you start adopting Claude Code, that you at least try it out. There's a GUI version of it now that's available too. They just rolled out Claude for work called Cowork. I'll show you what that looks like. Loading up. As you can see, he's working. So Claude Cowork is in the Claude app for Mac OS only currently. If you have access to it, you need to download and update to the version that just came out a couple of days ago. You'll see a new tab at the top called Cowork, and it's essentially just tapping into Claude code locally on your computer. Um, he's really thinking hard, isn't he? Any questions about Claude Code? Anybody have questions in general? Do you want to talk a little bit about your voice workflow and just planning in general, or do we want to save that for next time? I don't know if my voice is going to hold out.
Hi, this is Laura Patterson from Department of Health in Hawaii. So, so you talked about downloading SuperWhisper and that could be on the local computer. But then we were just talking about Cowork Claude. That's not necessarily just going to be local. Is that correct?
That's correct. So, like I was saying, there are ways to use Claude Code with AI instances of the Anthropic models that are hosted in your Azure, AWS, or Google Vertex environment.
Okay.
And it is possible to sign like a BAA now with Anthropic if you have that in place. But no, you can't use Claude Code locally.
Okay.
And so you could use this for development, like you can build the app, but like if you're doing a data science project and you've got PII embedded in your data,
Right.
or PHI, right? Then you can't use it for that.
Okay. Thank you.
But we're primarily going to be focused on like building the app itself, not actually processing the sensitive data with the AI. So we're kind of going to get around that a little bit. Any other questions?
So I don't know if you're getting there, but is there a checklist sort of what you'd want everyone to have done on their own to be ready for the next session?
I don't have a full checklist, but I'll show you right now in your little goodie bag in the GitHub repo. I've got all these exercises. So you're going to get a cheat sheet to understand all the SuperWhisper models. I'm giving you a little custom modes explainer that'll walk through how to create the custom modes. And then there's going to break down into these exercises. And so each one is like max 20, 30 minutes. I would recommend you try to do as many of these as possible. I think there's 8 total, or 4 or 5 that you really would want to focus on, which would be make sure you build your own mode, custom mode, and you try it out. I would try to do something with the LLM processing on the back end as well. So I would make a custom mode and add a model like Claude and start using it like literally every day for your email. And then I would also recommend the Teams chat mode. Those are 2 that you could just kind of get into the state of using them pretty often. And it'll help you out with your flow into the other ones. But if you have the time and the desire, I would also recommend creating a custom vocabulary or do some replacements. And then working on this agentic handoff. Like using SuperWhisper in between your AI tools. So even if you just use ChatGPT or Gemini or something like that, learning how to use SuperWhisper to talk to those models and learning the way that you want your prompt set up is going to be really important.
And can we get a link to the GitHub repo in the chat? And everyone will circulate that as well. But that way, folks who need to hop off now can have it. We have another half hour scheduled here, but this was a 90-minute session. I just wanted to leave time for overage in case there were questions. So Chris, you can continue or we can pick up in the next workshop. I put the upcoming session links in the chat so folks can sign up for those as well.
Cool. I'll just give you a little quick rundown of like my process, like kind of how I even created all of this content for you. It's like 10 steps, probably less than that if you want it to be. But first of all is create a GitHub repo for everything. If you're not well practiced in this, it is worth doing it for what's called version control. If you always operate inside of a GitHub or a Git repo, you can always go back. So if your AI makes a mistake and deletes stuff or goes crazy, you can always roll back, and you can even just tell the AI to roll it back. And it's very helpful to start getting into the rhythm of creating branches for new work, especially when we get into application development. But it just serves as a really stable environment to work out of. And these agents are very familiar with working inside of that world, and they'll pick up the patterns very early on, and it will just help you keep your project organized. The other thing I like to do is I always start off with a brainstorm session. So I'll kick around an idea with the agent, literally just having a conversation with it. I can just kind of stream of conscious, blurt out all my crazy ideas, and then I'll ask the AI to like poke holes in stuff. Am I crazy? Has this been done before? Let's go find examples of where it's been done if it's already been done. So we don't either we leverage stuff that's already out there or we don't repeat it, depending on the project. So I'll go through that whole brainstorming session until I really start to nail down the core of what I want to do. Once you've got your idea solidified, then leverage the deep research functionality. All the agents have deep research now. You can even run deep research from inside Claude Code. You just tell it to do deep research and it will do it. I like to go out and, depending on what I'm working on, right, like just have it automatically adapt and say, well, go find best practices for this particular type of a project. Find exemplary examples of this, and like, let's find their GitHub repos, or let's find out what we can about that project. Do competitive landscape comparisons. You can do all kinds of different things from a research perspective. I like to have it do 2 or 3 rounds of that and save all those files into our repo as markdown files. After I have all that information, then I start working with the AI in a conversation through a planning session. So we start talking about, hey, what are we going to call this thing? What's its core objective? How are we going to do it? What's success going to look like? Are there dependencies? Or is there other stuff we need that we don't have? Is there software that we need to install, dependencies? And then what would the order of building this be? The dependency order or the priority? And then once we've defined all those things, we actually have it create a plan. But the plan is for an MVP. It's not to do the whole thing right out of the gate. The first thing that I want to do, the way that I like to work, is I want something that I can click on and play with or read and look at and provide feedback on. So the first thing we do is create a prototype. You can literally just tell the AI, hey, let's take that and let's build an MVP. Here's the core things that I want to be able to do. I want something we can do in like 20 minutes. And for the AI, that's something that normally might have taken a week of work for a team.
Do you find that certain models render things out better? Like I like Claude's HTML outputs for clickability just generally, even though they're not like it's not a full implementation of a dashboard, but it gives you the
Oh
feel
yeah.
of what it would be like.
I don't think any model touches Opus 4.5 for like layout and design. But if you're talking about if you want like a rigorous plan, like what you want to output is a plan, GPT 5.2 on extra high is untouchable. Like it makes the best plans, but they're very verbose, right? And they can be overkill for some things. Gemini is also really good at architecture, like specific architecture. If you're designing a machine learning model or some sort of a data pipeline or something like that, Gemini can one shot that stuff better than a lot of the other models. So yeah, I think they all have their flavors and where they're good. Opus is, I think Opus is a better agent. Like it's tenacious. It wants to like solve the problem and do the work. Um, Whereas some of the other models, like Gemini is not really effective as an agent because it's not as good at tool use. It tends to fall on its face when it's editing files and stuff like that. So if it can't one shot it, you don't want to use Gemini.
Have you used anti-gravity with voice prompting yet?
Yeah, I would stay away from it.
Yeah. It
It's not, I don't think it's ripe yet. Like it's, I think they're going in the right direction. It's Windsurf. So they bought Windsurf, right? And they got the Windsurf team over there. And so it's just rebranded now as Anti-Gravity, and they're still working on getting it into their ecosystem. If you use Anti-Gravity, just don't use Gemini, use Opus or use GPT with it, and it's going to be a little bit better.
Yeah, and use a container or
Oh
something.
yeah. Put it in a container and you better fire up Git.
Yeah, agree. But that's it's I agree with your assessment. I put it away for a while. I'll revisit it later.
Yeah, I think in their incremental version it'll probably be better. Okay, so like after you make your plan, uh, or your let's go back. So after you do your prototype, then you need to come up with some standards. So if you've decided from your prototype that you want to move forward and that this is a good idea, and you feel that the AI is showing that it's capable of doing this project, the next thing you can do to ensure your success is create documentation and standards. So you don't have to create this stuff. You just tell the AI to do it. You say, hey, let's come up with a design language for this. If you don't already have it, right? Like if you don't already have brand guidelines or you're trying to do something fresh, have it create the design language, have it create UI UX patterns. I like to personally just go with well-known standards for most projects, or just like copy them, like copy material from Google. It's super well defined. It's in all their training data, and it's highly customizable. But you need to tell it that that's the standard that you want to use. Otherwise, you'll find that it's pulling stuff in from lots of different frameworks. You also want to give it some narrative guidelines. And so for me, I would have it create these 3 distinct files as markdown files and load those into my project under a docs folder. The design system, the architecture, and the narrative. And the narrative is just how we want it to write or speak across the project. Kind of its tone. Once we've done all those things, then we do our PRD. And you've probably heard a lot about this. It's been hot for the last 3 months or so, where everybody's talking about like spec kit, plan mode. There's a lot of different systems that are coming out now that are all around the same thing, which is just make a requirements document. Tell it what you want, make sure it's iterated all of the features that you want, and that it has some acceptance criteria for each of those features. And I think the real game changer with all of these spec things is it's not just having a user story and a flow or a list of features. It's knowing what good and done means by having that acceptance criteria. And you can just talk to the AI and have it build these things for you, but you need to make sure that you prompt it and tell it, create acceptance criteria for every user story. Once it's created the PRD, now you're ready for this back and forth, this agentic mode that we've been talking about. So you're going to now enter in this cycle of iteration where you're going to point it at the PRD. You're going to say, start here, and we're going to execute the PRD. But you always want to execute your PRD in like phases or chunks. If you tell it to do the whole thing all at once, more often than not, it will drift off target, not even a quarter of the way through. And you'll find that it's missing things. It's not really staying on task. So I also like to, like when I create my PRD, is to have it create distinct phases and break it down into work chunks. And like I mentioned before too, I also have some patterns that I'll give you around using agents and sub-agents inside of its own tools. So we're going to enter into this agentic iteration loop where we're going to point it at the PRD at like phase 1, phase 2. And we're going to say execute phase 1. I might start another agent if my plan allows me to have parallel tasks, start another agent and have it working on phase 2. So I can have one agent working on phase 1 and one agent working on phase 2, both at the same time, and they're both calling sub-agents. So now I have 5 agents or 6 agents that are all working for me all at the same time, and I'm having coffee and catching up on my email, and they're building out a new application. Then when they finish, they're going to tell me that they're finished. That's when I need to go review their output. And that's the most important thing. I see some of these YouTubers and they go out there and they're, oh, I'm going to have my agents just go build the whole PRD before I look at it. I think that's a bad idea. You're not going to catch the drift when you should, and they're going to drift. So at the end of each phase, do your checkup, look at the code, execute the app, load it up in the dev environment, and click around on it and make sure you're getting what you want and that it has correctly delivered to the acceptance criteria. Because intervening early will save you at the end. And then we just do that loop over and over again. We're going to review it, look at the work, we're going to test it, run through it, try to break it, see what's working or what's not working. Just verbally give the feedback. Hey, the button over here on this page is too small. The text overlaps this other button. Pad this by 10 pixels. That title doesn't work. That animation looks crazy. You don't have to actually hand code these things. You don't have to go in and fix it yourself. You want to lean on the model as much as you can and use your voice as much as you can. When you reach the end of the cycle, now you're ready for deployment. Depending on where you want to deploy these things to, I'm going to show you some ways to do instant deployment. Most of the projects that you're working on can probably be deployed as code or infrastructure as code all through the command line, and the agent can do it all for you. So you can deploy your app directly from your repo straight to your Azure container, straight to Vercel, straight to Railway, wherever it is that you want to host it. And depending on how you have your credentials set up, and of course the security requirements for your platform, it is very possible these days that you don't even have to touch the keyboard, and you can completely build the app and deploy it all from within Claude Code, Codex, and Gemini. So best practices, commit early and often. I add this in my rules files whenever I'm working with the agents, that they git commit after every major change. If you don't specifically tell it to do it, it will not do it natively. So you could wind up with hundreds of file changes without having a commit or a save point, essentially. And so if it made a mistake, you would lose all of that work. Once you get the model into the rhythm of committing and you have it in your instructions, it will just start doing it very naturally. It picks it up very quickly. And it's almost like it takes it being within the pattern of its instructions, like in your agent session, for it to really pick it up. But it makes a huge difference. And document everything. Like when it writes a plan, if you're having conversations and it has a good idea, have it write that to a markdown file. You just have to tell it, hey, save that to a markdown file. That's a really great idea. Put it in our docs folder and keep all of these ideas and iterations as markdown files in your documents, because it's very simple to simply use the @ symbol and type the name of the document to add that back into the context. So remember how I was telling you how we have those context cycles, we could get context rot, or it could start drifting off target. If we've kept all of our good ideas as markdown files, we can nudge it back on track real easily with that. And then just speak naturally, just stream of conscious. It doesn't care. They work really well with stream of conscious, actually. Make sure that you're using your voice to drive the workflow and to multitask. And also remember, there's really no such thing as perfect with AI. Make mistakes, break stuff, try things out, use Git. Be okay if it breaks and it doesn't work, because you're going to learn something from that. And it really does take, kind of like Andrea and I were talking about, like it takes working with these models to learn their personalities, because they do have personalities and they have strengths and weaknesses. And you've got to iterate with them, and you have to make mistakes, and you got to, burn your fingers a few times to learn what they're good at and what they're not good at and how they react to you. And different people gravitate towards different models. So even though I'm kind of selling you on Claude Code for our demonstration, I don't want to sell Claude Code as the end all be all, because there's a whole camp that loves Gemini just as well as OpenAI Codex as well. So that's all I have for you today. I appreciate your time. I hope that this was interesting and helpful, and we'll evolve it for part 2. And in part 2, we're going to build some stuff, and I'm going to give you a lot of custom configurations and tool sets for Claude Code and other development tools. And we'll set up some really cool stuff in that one and build something.
Yeah, Chris, thank you so much for just getting us going with all this. It's a really wild way to look at things, and to just taking the time to walk everyone through the fine grained setup and all is awesome. And we look forward to the next one. And folks, I'll get the recording out, and we'll send the GitHub link, and feel free to reach out with any questions you have as you come back to this work and start trying things in the meantime. And we will see you for the February and March sessions. And just to note that Brittany put in the chat that OpenAI is talking about their new health-focused releases right now. There's a link in the chat. So if anybody wants to pop over to that, go
Awesome.
right ahead. And